land in Dublin. As far as I know, I think we're gonna be landing in
I'm
Dublin.
gonna parachute into Springbank. I'm gonna go right to Stambleton. I'm just like, get me a biplane. I'll just jump out.
I was looking at a map. The Isle of Man, where Ralphie is, it's like a ferry away from.
Should we go knock on the bothy? Like, are you filming in here?
I don't think he would allow it on the island. Actually,
he would lose it. Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whisky and 6. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whisky Rant Podcast.
It's a little crusty.
It's frustrating.
And it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
What about this special bottle? Have you had
Springbank 15?
Anything Springbank 15 within the last year and a bit? So preceding the newest one, this one is June 2022, and
okay.
the one I reviewed that made it onto my top 6 from last year was January 2022, and I also tasted side by side with that in a review of last year, the end of the year from 2021. Mm-hmm. So all 3 of those were excellent.
Well, this one is January 21, the one I have. So is that outside of your envelope? I honestly, I find Springbank 15 probably the most divisive.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, up until like last year, I guess, it wasn't on my radar to continue to pick up.
Springbank 15 has had the most variance, it seems, in what we've tried, you know?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. But you've noticed an uptick.
In 2022, both that I tried were phenomenal. There was one near the end of 2021 that was also phenomenal as well. The first one that I ever purchased, I wasn't a big fan. I got a little bit more sulfur in it than I would have liked. This one definitely has the like Springbank characteristic to it. It, for me, handedly beat out the 18-year-old from last year.
Yeah, there's a little bit of sulfur in this one, but it's not kind of vegetal sulfur. It's not the eggy, farty end of sulfur. It's the kind of more match, you struck match type.
Right, the more tolerable sulfur, the more enjoyable, actually.
I do like that. I do like that sulfur.
Yeah, I can,
like a firework type note.
Yeah, I can enjoy that. I can get behind that. Mm-hmm. It's the one that you mentioned, the eggy one that really, really gets under my skin. Yeah. I can't get behind that one.
Yeah, because in here it almost translates to just like a barrel char, smokiness, you know?
Yeah, it can almost be confused with like a Campbelltown funk.
Yeah. Yeah,
I feel a little bad for Springbank in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't feel bad for them because of how successful they're being and being celebrated the world over. That's fantastic. But I kind of feel bad that there's 2 things happening now. A lot where we're reviewing it and talking about it less. So fair play to you for bringing it up and talking about it, because it still deserves to be talked about, why it's so successful. But we're also kind of saying that thing, you know, when it's almost like everybody knows that something's good, so people stop saying that it's good.
Right.
That makes sense, right? We're just like, oh yeah, but Springbank, and we don't talk about Springbank anymore, and you always feel bad. And I was there recently, and I was before when I was making the plans for the trip to go there, I was speaking to David Allen at Springbank, and he was talking about their success, and he says the sad thing for them, he said, obviously it's fantastic. There's challenges, you know, everybody complaining about that they can't get the whiskey is a huge problem for them. The queues every morning when they open up, the queue at the door and things, there are difficult things to manage about that success. But the big problem is that nobody feeds back to them how much they're enjoying the whiskey anymore. They used to get people saying, oh, I love the 15, I love the 18, I love the 10, I love the Longrow Red. They used to get people talking about it all the time. Now it's a commodity. Yeah. People want it. People need to get it. And they've noticed that what they're trying to do is manage that supply and not really enjoy how much people are enjoying their whiskey anymore. And I think that's a bit of a shame there.
There's this whole thing now. Is like, I don't know how much you pay attention to the comment section when you're doing the Oswas. Probably not too much because you were busy with other things. But, you know, when Springbank was announced Whiskey of the Year, you had a lot of people being like, so deserving, awesome, great. And then you had a lot of people being like, ugh.
Yeah.
You know, there's this level of disdain where it's just like people are fed up with everyone talking about Springbank because they can't get it in their area. and they're just sick of it. They're sick of being told.
Yeah, Mr. Springbank, you're doing such a great job that there's no way you should get an award, right?
I know. That's
You're just doing too good. You don't deserve this for doing too good. But of course, I mean, they obviously won best distillery, so it's I think that's appropriate because there's a reason for their success. They didn't turn up at work one day and just happen upon great whiskey. That's not what's happened there. 40, 50 years ago, they were forced to make changes in the late 70s and early 80s. Springbank was closed in the 1980s. And they started to realize that if they made contract fillings for other producers, they were never going to be in control of their own destiny, regardless of the scale that it was going to be at. They knew what Scotch whiskey could be. They knew what Campbelltown whiskey could be. So they started to make a strategy that would pull away from filling casks for other people. And also for bottling whiskey that was going to be involved in Dutch auctions for supermarket, mass scale buying, cheap as it can possibly be with razor thin margins. They get burned by that and they pulled out of all of that. So then they were reliant on enthusiasts. They were reliant on the people in the know, the people that loved the product and the people that loved what they did as a producer, employing people locally, all of the great things, doing everything naturally. But it's taken now 4 decades for them to be at the point where they are today. And then people don't want them to be celebrated.
Right. Yeah.
I think we owe them a couple of decades of celebration of lack of availability, right? Because they need to be the torchbearer.
Absolutely. It took me everything in my power not to include this whiskey into that tasting because I just didn't want, it's not even, in my opinion, sad to say, but they're not in the same ballpark. This is just I don't know. I mean, I don't know anybody that's been into whiskey, into Scotch in particular, for more than 2 years that wouldn't absolutely adore this whiskey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This, it's just, I know we're talking about a 15-year-old. We're not talking about a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old. We're talking about a 15-year-old that I would put up against majority of what I have on my bar. And I like to think that I purchase, relatively nice whiskeys, but it's fantastic.
And I was drinking the 10-year-old last night, 2021, and I'm just like, this is just so good.
Yeah,
this is just so good.
They're 10-year-olds. You pour a 10-year-old. You pour, even their go ahead.
10-year-old Springbank is enough for it's enough.
It is.
If you only had one whiskey and it was 10-year-old Springbank, you'd be happy. Right. Especially that late 2021 you talk about, Jeremy, right?
Yeah,
super tropical one, right?
Unbelievably good. Unbelievably good.
I could now answer that question with ease, and it's pick a whiskey under 20 years old that you could live with for the rest of your life, but that whiskey. It has to be one, and I think it would be really close. It would be really hard for me not to pick this.
Yeah,
if it could be exactly this, the batch actually behind you, which is even better than this one in my opinion.
But doesn't the 10-year-old stay the most consistent out of every single year?
It's phenomenal,
right? This changes probably the most. The 18 changes quite a bit.
Yeah,
the 12 of course does too. There's a lot of variances.
Well, it's 12. I think what's changing then, if I'm not mistaken, it's the fact that the 10-year-old is ex-bourbon cask majority. Is there any?
They still use a sherry cask in it in the makeup. But yeah, it's the majority is bourbon. One of my favorite ever Springbanks was exclusively bourbon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I know that you have always been. I always in my mind, and it's probably wrong, Rob. I associate you with being. You do have a soft spot for sherry matured whiskies, right? Absolutely. Still to this day.
He goes through.
Jeremy, I get the feeling that you're a bit more fickle.
I mean, I love a good sherry bomb. But again, I love the variety. The variety is the spice of life. I mean, we go through phases.
We do.
Sure. You probably boasted about sherry for a good, year straight.
Majority of my whiskey tube career was sherry driven, and then there was a year and a half to 2 years where I was like, I can't have another sherry whiskey.
Yeah,
it was a while where it took, because every time we were getting a sherry whiskey, I was getting that unsatisfied version of sulfur that I can't get around. And it seemed like they were just pushing sherry so hard at that time that they were just using whatever cask.
And you can do a sherry finish like pretty bad. You can do a sherry finish pretty bad on a lot of things. So it all depends.
That's kind of what my point was about the 15 is there's so much batch variation because it ultimately depends on the quality of the sherry casks that you're getting, and some years are going to be better than others. And in this, for whatever reason, the end of 2021 and all the 2022s that I tried of that 15, the casks that they used were phenomenal.
And so many more people are realizing now, like, what a really good ex-bourbon cask can do.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's about time. Like, look at the Aaron 10. I think the Aaron 10 is like an excellent example.
There's so many good examples of like majority ex-bourbon or really good ex-bourbon that's just blowing people away, you know?
Yeah. Not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Right.
Honestly, because what we have is that there's a huge drive, as we've already touched upon, for finishing and wine casks. You see it in independent bottle outturns. You see it from SMWS. You see it everywhere. They don't want to just flood it all with ex-bourbon, first fill bourbon, refill bourbon, whatever it may be. They want to kind of mix it up and have a good range, and that makes perfect sense. It's understandable. I think the problem comes if you look at core releases, core ranges, especially when you've got like non-age statement cask strengths, and then you've got a 10 and a 12 and a 15 and 18, whatever it may be. You very rarely see a core lineup with an exclusively bourbon matured release.
Yep.
And that is where we are failing a wee bit, because Scotch whiskey, I hate to tell you, the truth is that, we talk about the millions and millions and millions of barrels that's out there maturing in the landscape right now. They're bourbon barrels.
Yeah.
That's what they are. There are very few of these kind of sexy barrels. And when it comes to scale and volume and things, it's and I'm still talking about malt. If you factor grain into that, it's overwhelmingly you're down into the less than single digits of on the malt side. But if you just talk about malt, it's still very, very small amount of butts and barriques and port pipes and wine casks and all of these things, rum casks. There's a lot of it out there, enough to keep us interested. But I think we're forgetting how good time and patience and a bourbon cask, whether it's first fill or refill or whatever it may be. Yeah. And I know that neither of you guys, it's probably down to me. You never got to taste my Loch Lomond this year, right? I released a Loch Lomond this year, 10 years, first fill bourbon, Chardonnay wine yeast. It just makes me so excited for the future. Because for the last 10 years plus, we've been making whiskey and it's there now. It's there. It's not in bottles yet, but it's coming. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah. I would love to try that. I'm assuming it's completely sold out, but
yeah. I mean, I've put a big asterisk here. Rob and Jeremy. So the next time that a mule is traveling over the Atlantic, maybe Graham Young or.
Well, we are traveling over the Atlantic soon.
We might have a little trip coming in March.
In March, we're going to be visiting Waterford Distillery in Ireland. So that's coming up this March. We should be. You might go to Scotland as well.
I'm 100% going to Scotland.
I can't make it to Scotland.
There's no doubt about that. I'm going to Scotland.
As teaching goes, I only have the 1 week.
It's just a hop, skip, and a jump. You got to do it.
I know. I would love to, but we're trying to. So it's
Jeremy. You see the little seat here? That's got your name on it. Rob,
can I play?
Instead of you taking that seat, I'll take that seat. I'll take that seat.
That's perfect. I would love to see that. You guys hook up in Scotland. That would be absolutely incredible and worth the journey over there.
I'll cosplay as Ralphie, and we'll do a mid-year Oswas.
A live rant from there.
Ooh, live
will be the upcast. Well, depending on when I might still be in Canada when you're there, when you're in Scotland, right? Because
you need to learn more of Ralphieisms than just wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
Oh yeah, that's true. No, I'm gonna go to Springbank, and I'm gonna like veer off the tour and just like live in the dunnage warehouse for as long as I possibly can until they kick me out.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So we are going to Waterford for 2 days for sure.
Well, that's a good spot to go to, no doubt. But it's probably 300 or 400 miles south of where you should be landing.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
well, hey,
I'll let you interpret that how you would like.
the plan is eventually, obviously, to spend at least 2 weeks in Scotland, because I don't see it any other way. I don't see it working out any other way. We have to be there for 2 full weeks to get the full Scotland experience.
Of course, yeah.
Probably more than that. I mean,
more.
Well, I think a lot of people make that mistake, Rob, and I appreciate the way you're thinking, but I think that what happens is people tend to arrive here and think, they treat it like a bucket list type thing, like it's the only time they're ever going to do it. What they're not prepared for is how much it kind of sinks its claws into you, and you'll find a way to be back again.
Yeah,
and back again, and it becomes something that once you do it, once you realize that it's not that far. I have this theory that if I'm going to get on a plane and travel to see my brother in the south of England, right? It's just I get on a plane and 50 minutes later we're landing. It's a flight, but it's the exact same me going across the Atlantic. You get on, you stay on the plane for a while, and you get off.
Yeah.
So and once you get over that thing and you realize that jet lag is something that you can actually manage and stuff, and you get the idea that it suddenly seems much closer. I mean, I go to Texas every year I can, right?
Yeah.
I hope maybe one day I could meet you guys down there. You never know. I'd love to come to Canada too.
that'd be great.
It's suddenly, once you do it once, you realize that you can do it again. So the danger, I think, is to try and cram too much into it. So Jeremy, maybe if you turn up here after you've been in Ireland at the team at Waterford, I don't know how many days you'll have, whether it's a couple, a weekend, or longer. But I was going to say, let me know, but honestly, buddy, you don't have the ninja to get in and out of this country without me knowing about it. That would be amazing. Aye, that would be cool.
It really, so right now we're flirting with too many things at the moment. Like my wife would like to come, but I don't know if she comes, and we might take the kids. We don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Sure.
So at this point, it's impossible to say. And then if I go by myself, it's going to be a quicker trip, I think, just because of the logistics of it. So we'll probably land in Dublin. As far as I know, I think we're going to be landing in
I'm
Dublin.
going to parachute into Springbank. I'm going to go right to Stampleton. I'm just like, get me a biplane. I'll just jump out.
I was looking at a map. The Isle of Man, where Ralphie is, it's like a ferry away from.
Should we go knock on the bothy? Like, are you filming in here?
I don't think he would allow it on the island. Actually,
he would lose it.
Yeah,
but
lose it.
Yeah, let me know how the plans go for that. That would be cool.
Yeah, it's still in the works, but for sure we're spending 2 days in Waterford, and then I would like to do St. Paddy's Day in Dublin.
Well, we'll do St. Paddy's in Dublin. I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
This Anok is out of control good.
It's good.
I haven't tried this in a long time.
It's very good. And for the price it was at the time, it's so good. Yeah. Really good. So clean.
It's a switcher, Jeremy. Depending on what you sip it alongside, the sherry comes out, or the more bourbon side of it comes out. But for me, it's the spice, and it's a very detailed whiskey. There's a lot of kind of little intricate things to pick out.
You're right.
It's a contemplative thing. It's
the spice profile
and
is different than you get in other more Oloroso spicy kind of whiskeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't know if I would be able to nail it blind, but I don't know. I feel like I might be able to, because it definitely has that Anok characteristic that I love. The 18 had it maybe a little bit more. And the 39-year-old, you had a chance to try that 39-year-old, that 1975 that I had a while back. Yes.
That was good.
It was, I mean, it reminds me of that, obviously at a lower scale, but.
Combination of casks in this?
I think bourbon and sherry, right?
Yep. They don't mention it, of course, but I get the impression that, or if it is all sherry, then there's a lot of third fill sherry and kind of
right.
It's kind of funny that we call it third fill sherry rather than calling it refill Scotch, because it has had Scotch in it before, right? Rather than
that's true. I've
never. It's an ex-Scotch cask.
A refill Scotch barrel.
Refill Scotch barrel.
I think actually Canadian distillers are starting to use that a little bit.
That's true. They'll buy
Right.
like a Lefroy barrel,
like
or
that
something,
smoke
right?
point
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
have that's
Yeah.
aged in a old Lefroy barrel.
Yeah.
Right. And then I guess the newer ones might be in some Ardbeg barrels as well. Whereas the difference between Two Brewers and Shelter Point is the Two Brewers barley is Scottish peated barley. That's why that one is peated.
Mm.
Whereas the barley from Shelter Point is just Canadian barley and it's the distillate is aged in a peated cask.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
More than one way to swing a cat as well.
Exactly.
Right.
I haven't and have no intention of a self-promotion. I'm not going to talk about the channel. Could I plug the other project I'm involved in?
Oh,
Absolutely.
plug everything.
Plug everything.
Do you,
Yeah.
guys, do you guys know about Dramface?
Yes. It's a beautiful blog.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, good.
And well, the blog side of it and the podcast side of it. So go ahead.
Yes, aye. Well, it's just we're coming up with February will be 1 year of Dramface, but it almost feels like it's been around forever, and we've managed the whole year of daily, not 7 days a week. We don't put content out on the weekends. We did originally back at the start when we had such a backlog of content to put out. But there's a fantastic team of writers there. That really, you've got people who are really good at painting fantastic images with words, people who are brand new and really green and kind of just sharing their early days of the journey, and then people that are really experienced, people that know about production, people who are kind of hobbyists to the point of distillation and brewing and everything. And it's just a fantastic team that's behind it. And what I've realized is that while I've been letting Dramface earn its stripes and things, it's been growing and growing really, really well. Strong growth. It's fantastic to see the reception it's had. But now we've put in a stronger social media team so that those writers that are putting out that content can get traffic driven to read their words and things. And it just, when we're talking about some of the topics that we've talked about in this couple of hours, I don't know if it's one session or 2 sessions you're going to cut this into, but if you talk about independence, Dramface is 100% fully community funded. You know, it's optional, it's for free. Some people can choose to step up, much in the same way as we do on YouTube, to support if you want to see the thing endure. And to me, that's the model going forward. That's the way to do this thing. Once people realize that there's a value in the independence and the honesty and the integrity, most of them are pretty happy to pay a wee contribution towards it, right? Especially if they're saving money and gambling a wee bit less, much like we do on YouTube. So, for anybody that's morning coffee read, commute podcast, if you enjoy listening to Rob and Jeremy, we put out a podcast. We do probably similar cadence to you guys in terms of output. I don't know, 1 or 2 a month at most. But you know, it's an hour plus of content, so there's plenty of listening. I'm just really, really proud of the team, what they've managed to pull off in the last year, and it's incumbent upon me to just try and get the word out there as much as I can, especially when you've got prominent people in the industry standing up and saying there isn't enough critique in whiskey. If you look for it, it's there.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. I mean, that was one cool thing about the Oswas this year. You know, you introduced me to a whole bunch of channels that I'd never seen before, and started exploring them, and really good content. Everyone's putting out good stuff. So links description down below. Dramface, check it out.
Dramface
blog, podcasts, reviews, all of it.
And this was really nice. It was a good podcast. I really enjoyed getting to, felt nice and casual, just talking to a buddy.
I'm bummed that you're drawing it to a close, if I'm honest. I'm ready to go.
I'm always drinking so much on these whiskey rants.
Yeah, well, today was an exception because you had that 4 dram blind to do.
Right.
Yeah.
How good? What was your? How good is this stupid Springbank?
I know it is good, but honestly, I would take this.
What? Yeah, wow.
I would take this.
I'm impressed.
I would take this over the Spring. I mean, I do like the Springbank, of course, it's really good. But this thing's just more balanced. This is just a profile that is it's just
pour and play. Don't have to think about anything.
It is. It's an everyday.
Yeah.
I mean, if 24-year-old whiskey isn't every day,
I
but
know,
like
right? Yeah.
for the price point that you originally paid,
Originally, it was an everyday
Yep.
whiskey.
it could be something that it's like not every day, but it's like, you know, it's your weekend pour, maybe,
Yeah.
perhaps, you know?
Yeah, it was almost, you know, at one point it was like, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but it was almost like, you know, someone comes to your house for the first time and they want to try something cool. I almost felt bad pouring it because I felt like I didn't pay enough for them to feel like I
Sure.
wanted them to feel more worthy of a, you know, a more expensive bottle, but it's such a stupid way of thinking because it's such a fantastic bottle.
Absolutely.
But you know,
Yeah.
it's just trying to be more generous, I guess, than necessary.
Do you want to throw out one whiskey that you will be purchasing this year? Something you got your eye on?
You know, honestly, I'm gonna get up and grab it, so mind my back, but
He's already bought it.
well, no, I'm gonna be buying
more of this
Ben Romick type contrast stuff. This is the sherry.
It's here.
And
It's up there. And what's wonderful about it, Rob, is they've put it out at the higher ABV, right? I mean, why? Why, Gordon McPhail? Why are you keeping your core range at 40?
We asked them that. And they're like, yeah, it still sells, so we do it.
Yeah. Well, I think
essentially.
they don't have plans. He admitted it. He said they don't have plans on changing the core range at all. And this is what I was saying earlier about it being at 43%, is trying a few of them after trying these. And that's when it took me to go back and try a few of them.
Right.
Like, you know what? These are really good.
Yes.
But it just took me until trying this and some of the other stuff that they have at 46% to really go back and respect the other thing. Like that cask strength is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the vintage 10-year-old cask strengths. I mean, every time we see one of those in the future, it's an automatic buy.
Instant buy. I don't even, and the problem is the word is out already. So now it's not even that easy to get those bottles. But these are still a little bit easier. This is my second bottle of the sherry cask peat smoke. I have the bourbon cask peat smoke, which is a lesser ABV. A lesser ppm. It's 45 ppm, the bourbon one, but it drinks more peated, I guess, because of the sherry cask influence.
Yeah,
it's 55 one. But
and they're all the bourbon cask, that sherry cask that you have. There's another one I have up here as well, the Cara Gold, which is using
Cara Gold. Yeah,
that is a good one too.
That's a good one.
A percentage of Cara Gold malt.
Yep.
Jeremy, I agree with you though, Rob. I think the pick is that, or let's say the compelling one, the one that really, the memorable one is the peat and smoke. The sherry cask peated, the one that you have there. I think.
Right. Yeah.
And I agree that if you were going to recommend a Ben Romack to a whiskey lover, you know, you would recommend them the cask strength. It's always fantastic. But you can even recommend, if you talk about enjoying whiskies sub 46% ABV, absolutely you can enjoy Ben Romack. It's an easy one to recommend, the 10-year, the 15-year. But it's heartbreaking that 15-year and that 21-year is stripped and filtered. Heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's such a unique, precious malt, absolutely unique. It's ridiculous that that's a Speyside whiskey. There's no way it's anything like this idea of regional. If you want to shatter the illusion of regions, Ben Romack does it, right? Because it's so unique.
It drinks like a Cameltown. It drinks like it gives the illusion of a Cameltown almost every single time I drink it.
Yeah, people would be very surprised blind tasting that.
Yeah, I think so.
They call it the Springbank of Speyside. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's been called that on
someone's been
before it was brought to our attention. It's been called that on this channel, and then someone brought it to our attention that Ralphie had said
Ralphie famously.
Ralphie got it from me though.
Oh, did he?
Ralphie got it from you. Yeah,
there you go. There you go. So
who did you get it from? Are you the original?
Of course. No, but I mean, it doesn't take. I don't think it doesn't take a leap to make all independent channels who never collaborated or spoke or watched each other to sit down and drink up in Romack and all come up with the same conclusion. This is the Springbank of Speyside. It's quite an obvious conclusion to draw, right? That's clearly what it is. There's a funky element to it. There is something industrial, mechanical, oily, wet rag sometimes. Yes. Sometimes it goes a wee bit farmyard. Sometimes it goes all kind of overripe fruits and things. It's just it does what it does very, very well.
Both times I opened the fresh pour of this sherry cask. So this is the second bottle that I have that I'm going through now. I get this beautiful, and people are gonna be like, people new to whiskey are gonna be like, what? And I probably would have been the same thing, but magic marker, just like that black magic marker like aroma, and it's just phenomenal.
What were those magic markers in school? The flavored ones you smell. They banned those at my school eventually.
Yeah, so
they're called like Mr. Sniff or something.
Those like smellable ones.
They were all smellable. They all had different flavor.
Yeah.
So black marker on this one.
On that, it dissipated throughout the bottle, so you might not get it as much.
I got it immediately on the palate.
On the palate,
not so much the finish, but on the palate.
Black magic marker
for sure.
And when I first opened the bottle, it filled the room with like that smell. I was like, this is phenomenal.
But it's not black marker. It's not, because what you're speaking about is a kind of acetone solvent type. No, but it's not a negative thing.
No, and that's what I mean. I love it. I absolutely. But if you go back 7 years ago, before I started Whiskey in the Six, and you tell me you're gonna love a whiskey that tastes and smells like black magic marker, I would have slapped myself in the face.
Well, it depends, because like I like that smell.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, you're right. But back then, I didn't have the palate for it.
Sure.
I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
There's no way I was ready for that.
But there is a bit that it is in there. Maybe not Sharpie, but maybe whiteboard marker.
Yeah, not Sharpie, because Sharpie has like
no, I don't mean Sharpie.
Sharpie has really like made their stuff not smell.
Right. I mean that old school, like
the
thick
cheap
silver magic marker, like
right.
old, like they're really old. Like we're talking 15, 20 years ago.
What kids used to use to like tag stuff, like the old school, like, not Sharpie.
It was like an industrial marker.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily like kids didn't have it in their pencil case. That's right.
But if you were describing this to somebody in order to tempt them in to trying a glass, they would be like, "What?"
Yeah, that's why they would have no interest in what I just said.
Oh, my family watches my Lefroy videos, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Road and tar? And you like this? Like it smells like a hospital, and you're like drinking it?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's great."
If you would have told me that Lefroy would have ended up being one of my favorite distilleries in like the last few years, like 10 years ago, I would have laughed hard in my own face, like in your face or whatever,
Well, do you know the amazing thing about what we're doing on YouTube is that if we have the courage, we can look back in our 10-year-old videos and see the transition. I'm not just talking about how we age, but our opinions on whiskey, what our favorites are, and it kind of makes me really excited for the future, what I haven't yet decided I like. Right?
Yeah,
that's why I started doing tasting notes. Because like you can look back and be like, okay, this is a Springbank 12-year-old that I did in 2016. And like, look what I said about it. That's like, it's crazy to reflect and like have that catalog of your thoughts at a certain given time.
Absolutely. And yours are very neatly printed out as you go on your channel. So that's going to be something easy to look forward to. We always make the joke. When I started my channel, my hairline was like here.
Oh God, our hairline's like, don't look at them.
It's amazing.
Do you really want to talk about hairlines? I'm offended. Come on. I would kill for a hairline right now. Any kind of hairline.
Right? Like on our 10-year anniversary, we should just do a time lapse, and you'll see just like slowly sucking it back.
I want to do it.
That's something that a writer, a journalist, a blogger, they don't suffer from that, right? They just they don't have their facade on video.
Yeah, it's true. And we don't, I mean, I don't have movie star money to continue to fill that in.
Plug it up. Plug it out.
So that's, but
it's got to be integrity. It's got to be integrity, Rob. If it falls out, it falls out.
That's right. Where are you going to be spending your dollars? Give us one or two.
I've already. So tomorrow's VPub, the first VPub back in 2023, is going to be kind of predicting our predictions for 2023, and of course, part of that is predicting what I'm going to be spending money on. But I found myself making notes, the exact same notes that I make every year. You know, I'm going to choose quality over quantity. That's a given. I think we're finding ways to do that. I'm going to choose. I'm going to explore more independence and spend more times because I know that not everyone can buy an independent. If I buy an indie that's only 200 bottles from a bourbon barrel, what's the point of me talking about that in the channel? That's got very low impact or low value, right? But what I learn through enjoying that whiskey, how it helps me extend my understanding and all of these great things of whether it's the distillery or the maturation or whatever it is, I always just suggest that I'm going to buy more indies. But if I'm honest, I've already mentioned at the outset of the session, is that my livelihood is about the channel and the community. Yeah. And I think it's incumbent upon me to try my hardest to find where the good stuff lies in the everyday. So I think the majority of my 2023 spending is going to follow the majority of my 2022 spending. And I can tell you from my tax return that very much was that.
Yeah.
Stuff that's available to everyone everywhere. Very much in line with the Oswas, in line with a chunk of what we do at Dramface, certainly in line with what you guys review over on Sippers and Whisky in the Six. Stuff that we can all enjoy together. It's fine to sit in a chair on your own and just sit with a whiskey and just cancel everything else out, close your eyes, dim the lights, whatever it is. That's fine. But the privilege of being able to share whiskey in 2022, 2023, right around the world is too good. And if we can work as a community to find where the gems are, to mine those gems, that's what I'm going to focus on. I will make selfish purchases. Of course I will. There's one was delivered this very week, actually. Yeah. This is very selfish. And this is insider information. There's or maybe it's already out. There was a Cadenheads Dramface review out by Dallas, the winter outturn from Cadenheads, and he gave this a 9 out of 10. And I said, well, okay, it's £165. It's a Glenkeith 24-year-old from a bourbon barrel, interestingly. And £165, that's a bit expensive. My in-laws didn't know what to buy me for Christmas this year. They can't buy me whiskey anymore because it's futile, right? Yeah. So they just gave me cash and little cute gift cards with a message in it. And it added up to £155. So this cost me £10, and this is my Christmas gift. So nice. I will make selfish purchases, but my whiskey purchasing is different from most people, I think, because I'm probably buying for the channel most of the time. You've got to admit, guys, you buy for the channel. Let's be honest. You buy things that you think you need to be up to speed on, right?
Absolutely.
Sure. Reviewing a single cask independent bottling that no one can get is like, what's the point? I mean, sure, like some people are like, okay, yeah, cool opinion on that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
yeah, we don't even really do formal reviews on those anymore. We usually do them on the rant. We'll review it, but we're not, the rants are not focused on one whiskey in particular, usually anyway.
But that's like the value lies in those bottlings, but like to review them, it doesn't really make too much sense because like no one's going to see it.
That's right.
No one's going to see that bottle.
You didn't answer the question yet. What about you? What's one bottle that you're...
Well, like I said, I've already purchased it, which I 18.
Okay, sorry.
That's coming in.
So that's
and then the Aaron 18, the new Aaron 18, that's on the radar.
Yeah, absolutely.
1,000% gonna buy that when it comes up. And then I don't know. Like, I want to get back into bourbon. Bourbon has been off the radar for like 2 years.
It's hard because we don't get a lot of it, and the only ones that really interest me are like the Calumet 16, 15. You got the 15. I want to try the 16. I'm interested in that. I don't really...
Even still, like a 15-year-old bourbon, yeah, it's pretty good. It's $170. Like, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So like for me, I don't know. It's like, it's got to be Scotch and world whiskey. Bourbon is just right at the back of the radar. Don't even really care.
Yeah.
I would love to get some good quality bourbon, but I don't see it happening. So yeah, I can focus on Scotch.
There's good single malts coming out of the US, but I would say like bourbon is a pass for me. Ryes are good.
Yeah.
Bourbon is just going to continue to be a pass for me probably in 20.
I noticed the kind of snapshot bit of B-roll that you put up at the last Whisky Rant, where you you put a picture up of, I don't know, the LCBO or whatever it was, the bourbon selection that you have.
Yeah, right.
And it's very, very similar to our bourbon selection here, almost
Yes.
identical, but
Sure.
just much, ours is much smaller. Of course, it takes up less space, I guess. So it's difficult for me. That the reason I've been able to explore really cool bourbons is through the community or through travel. It's tough. It's tough. And to be honest with you, if there were no other whiskies outside of Scotch, we would still be saturated.
Yeah.
So you have to make a very deliberate decision to explore Irish, English, American, Canadian, world, whatever whiskies it may be. You have to make it. But I think it's valuable. I think it's important because as the prices in Scotch do this, I think that, you know, that there's a behavior, there's a pattern happening in Scotch. Like they're still the only, the only thing in town, and that's not the case. It's certainly not going to be the case in the years ahead. Scotch has to, if it's still going to be that thing, it has to deserve to be that thing.
I'm excited to
It's
see
going to be interesting.
a UK or Ireland airport. I'm excited. I'm like,
this is what is exciting about 2023 is that new distilleries making a name for themselves.
Yes.
Because there's so many coming out, and
there are a bunch.
a whole bunch of new distillery of the year. They got nominated for the online Scotch Whisky Awards. We haven't had a chance to even try yet because they haven't branched out this far to our area. And that I think is what I'm most excited about. It's like trying new whiskeys that are making a name for themselves, new distilleries that are up and coming, that are producing really quality stuff.
Speaking of which, there's an Irish distillery that Billy Walker is associated with, and I think he's one of the master blenders, or he's involved in blending, or at least maybe one expression he was involved in blending. I'm not exactly. Is it a new? It's
I don't know it.
It's 4 hours away from where we're gonna be. It's 4 hours away from Waterford. I looked it up because I wanted to see if I could go distill.
It's got to be north then, yeah.
It's
4 hours from Waterford is most of Ireland.
It's like you're almost in Scotland by that point.
It's 4 hours north. Yeah, west.
Right.
Northwest. So it's the western coast. It starts with an A. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, I gotta look back.
One more thing I have to edit into the show right now.
Yeah,
with that distillery.
So Jeremy's gonna edit. This will
There
be
it
the
is, right,
second
yeah.
part. So you
There
have
it
an
is
extra
right
week.
there. Yeah, sure.
You have an extra week.
Yeah. I think it's going to be exciting. I think there's going to be more new releases this year.
Yeah.
Are they going to sell? Are they going to fly off the shelves like they did over 2020, 2021, the years of the pandemic? Or are they going to maybe sit around a little bit longer? Honestly, I hope it's a bit of both. I hope that they're successful and they're in demand, but I hope that we don't see the crazy where whiskey has drawn people that were never involved in whiskey before into it purely for profiteering, for flipping and things like that.
Right.
That's happened in the last couple of years, and if we can make it so that these things are embraced and enjoyed, but enough of it so that it kind of keeps that out of it.
Yep.
Probably that's the better long-term game.
I think it's possible. I think it's only a matter of time with enough of these newer distilleries opening up and the amount of whiskey that's going to be available to people, and the fact that people are pulling back, as Ralphie would say, on their purse strings or tightening their purse strings. Yeah, you're gonna see things available a little bit easier, maybe that weren't in years past.
You would hope so.
I think so, because
have you managed to get much Ardbeg out there yet?
Just the one so far.
Yeah, the one you have there.
This 58.7%, the 0222, the AD.
Oh, good. Okay, that's a good one. That's the first cast strength release. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
what did you think, though?
I really like it. Very, very nice whiskey.
That's their most heavily peated release.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, apart from single casks, I guess, but core release. That's the most heavily peated.
Did you get a chance to try the Madeira cask?
Oh my God, yeah.
And that's, I'm assuming, really nice.
Yeah, it's terrific whiskey. I mean, you have to caveat it always. I mean, we're still talking about 5 and 6 year old whiskey at best.
Yeah.
But it's just so exciting for the future. You know, we talk about YouTube being a bit of an echo chamber at times, you know, and because everybody's excited about Ardbeg, and it takes a brave soul to decide that they're not excited about it or say they don't really enjoy it.
Right.
But actually, that's not a brave soul. That's a hot take in YouTube,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
So what we're seeing is not the product of an echo chamber. What we're seeing is actually, I think, for the most part, consensus that Ardbeg is genuinely a really quite exciting whiskey. We've got something that's a real West Coast Highlander. It's got salinity. It's got minerality in there. It's got the fruit, lots of gorgeous spice. It's got everything that you need, and it's already doing very, very well at a very youthful age. You know, I think as time goes on, we're going to see, it's going to be wonderful to see what happens with more and more mature stock making it into the makeup of Ardbeg.
Yeah, I could just imagine, because watching them speak to their product on the Oshawas, it was really nice to see. You could just see that they're very down to earth, really, really good people, and their product, they're proud of it. It's something that they love, obviously, and they're very proud of it, and they're happy, and you can just see the genuine glee in the fact that other people are liking it as much as they do, right? So it was nice to see. It was nice to see. You don't get to see that side of Scotland, at least, very often. I get to see it a little bit more with the Canadian distilleries that are out there, but I don't get to see it as much with Scottish distilleries. So it was really, really nice to see that side of it.
Well, it was interesting in the online Scotch Whisky Awards of 2022 that, you know, we saw Springbank, Signatory Vintage, we saw Ardbeg, we saw Glen Scotia stepping forward, we saw Arran stepping forward. And that was really nice to see. But when you don't see Chivas Regal, sorry, it's not Chivas, it's Pernod Ricard, Irish distiller, stepping forward for the Redbreast, winning 2 categories, by the way. And Nika, they don't step forward to make any mention of the fact, you know, that they do not see us.
Yeah, they don't.
As important or part of their market. So they actually spoke louder by their absence than if they'd turned up and said something polite. Like, you know, at Compass Box even, they just sent in a little pre-recorded video, which is fair enough. Nobody's available. Great. But they were genuinely excited, so they sent in but Nika, Irish Distillers, Pernod Ricard, they didn't respond to any communication direct to them or to their PR.
Wow.
That is clear. It's going to be interesting to see, because the community spots this.
Yeah.
And the community have messaged us to say, we're embarrassed that nobody stepped forward to say how cool a thing. Thousands of people voting for their product, and they just don't, not even a polite email, nothing.
It was, I don't want to say it was disappointing to see how well Redbreast did, but I do like Redbreast, but I do notice a huge decline in their cask strength and what it was just 5 years ago. In the old label, I found it was so much fruitier. I don't know if what's changed. Maybe I'm just getting the wrong batches. I don't know, but it's quite possible. But I have not been as big a fan of Redbreast 12.
Yeah,
I made my own whiskey calendar in 2022, and I poured 24 whiskies, put them in little bottles, and just dumped them into a box. And I had my son or my daughters pull out one blind, and they poured it to me. The only one that came across as bland that I declared not something I would be interested in pouring another dram of, crazy, was Redbreast 15.
Wow.
And blind, it was just like, it was like, that's the only one. Is people love it, you know, people love it, and I love it. I've spoke positively of it in the past, so that was an interesting take. And it might be what you mentioned, Rob. It might be the fact that because the demand for Redbreast is through the roof. North American sales for that stuff is ridiculous. It's off the charts. So
yeah, and it was built on the back of that old label, the old Robin on that label. It was just that cask strength. I remember trying that for the first time and being absolutely mind blown.
The sherry casks they were used in those old batches were so good.
It was just so fruity.
We had a lot of good batches.
Yeah, it was just so fruity.
Yeah.
And it's just not that anymore, I don't find. So
there's pressure on Irish whiskey as well. It's been the fastest growing category for a number of years now. Blowing up, 40 plus distilleries now, malt distilleries in Ireland. It's just incredible to see. Actually, not just malt. I mean, they're much more experimental in Ireland, but it's going to be incredible to see how things develop there going forward as well. Listen, see if you're a drinker, if you're somebody on the outside like us looking in and just enjoying this stuff, is it not really, really exciting? The only hurdle we need to overcome is defining the choice, because there's variations is so wide, and the price issues. You know, the affordability of it is becoming more and more. If you guys haven't seen it yet, you're going to see it soon, because the price jumps that we're seeing here they are cynical, they are ugly, repugnant, they're ridiculous.
Yeah,
the LCBO just spins a big wheel. Like, what should we charge for Lagavulin freaking 16? It's just like, let's just pump the price up.
The new deal releases, speaking of price increase, I can't justify buying any of them at that price.
Yeah.
Not one. I won't. I will not. Not one of them is coming in under $300. It's crazy. It's absurd.
It's crazy.
There must be so many people out there that look at two products, one at $300, one at $150, and decide that the one at $300 must be twice as good.
Right.
So it's positioning.
Yeah.
However, they're playing a very dangerous game, because they are dancing with luxury goods and fashion, and that's not a long-term plan. I don't think, my opinion, because people have all the knowledge in their pocket now.
Yeah.
And they can dial up and they can hear Rob at Whiskey in the Six talking about the latest whatever it may be as they stand in the airport on their 5G connection with their AirPods in their ear, and Rob's saying, I paid $230 for this, and it's piss.
Yeah.
You know, and then why don't you buy this at half the price and it's on the same shelf? And this is becoming more and more of a thing. There are only so many rich people, hordes of rich people out there. Everybody's chasing the high end.
Yeah.
The high end isn't that wide. They're corralling themselves into competing with each other. Good luck to them all. We will work together as a community, I think, to find where the value is. And the value, as you've got on the table in front of you right now, the value is out there.
Yeah.
There's lots of it, a ton of it.
This bottle here, $80.
Yeah, this is one you can get right now. Great value and great price.
Yeah,
and available, right?
I'm not buying much over that at that price range. It's hard. It's hard to. I'm just shocked that Diageo's doing this to themselves again. You thought that they like bailed themselves out with that, with the introduction of this range.
Yes.
And they were all well priced. There was a Cragganmore 20-year-old.
Yeah.
That was $120.
Very, very good. Very, very good.
I think I paid $120 Canadian for that.
This was their whole plan, though. This was their whole plan.
I get it, but like it's so disappointing to see them play this game again. They literally painted themselves into a corner right before this release, and then they're like, "We're gonna save our asses."
Sorry, the Cragganmore's up there, but I want to listen to you. It's the 20-year-old Cragganmore, but that was £120. So imagine you guys got it for less than 200 Canadian.
We got a great deal on that.
Great deal on that bottle.
Great deal,
incredible bottle. But at least it was 20 years old. You know what I mean? And it's cask strength and it's well represented. We got 11-year-old Talisker coming in at almost $300 now. Like these are all exceeded $200.
Yeah.
You know, the Lagavulin 12-year-old that years ago was close to $110.
Ooh, 2017. What a great year for that. And great price.
Yeah.
And now
I think
$300 for the 12, right?
Yeah, well, it's close. It's
close.
I mean,
260?
Well, my last Lagavulin 12 purchase, and it's heartbreaking for me. Believe me, I've got such an emotional investment in that distillery and those products and those bottles. My last Lagavulin is a 2020 release of the special releases, and I'm just done now, because you know what is really good whiskey, and arguably there's if your mood is right, there's not much to beat it.
Yeah.
But it gets to the point that you know that the market's going to pay it now, and you're just constantly pushing to see what will pay. Now you're in the realm of there's too many other nice things out there for that money, far too much. And what's really interesting is that if you go into the 5 years ago when the special releases came out, most of them sold out. You know, most of them did 6-7 years ago. Then they started to get silly. I mean, there's one over here that I love. I'll show you this one. A distillery that I love. And I was desperate for this one, but when I saw the price, I just said, there's no way I'm going to buy this. This is Chininik, 17-year-old. They had it out for their 200th anniversary, so 1817 to 2017. But this was £275
Wow.
for a 17-year-old whiskey. I mean, there's just suddenly I was destroyed because I realized that there's no way I can ever touch that bottle that I've been desperately waiting for.
Yeah.
Then, if I go onto the Whiskey Exchange right now, this is 2023. 6 years ago, this was released, almost 5.5 years ago, right? You can still buy this now. That's how much they screwed up. Wow, this. And I bought this at auction for £130.
Wow.
I feel sorry for somebody lost money on this, and it wasn't Diageo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because somebody bought it at retail, but they've still got this collecting dust. And if there's a flash sale online, remember at Master at Malt, this was one of the ones that went on flash sale. You know, this is the type of whiskey. And by the way, if you can pick this up cheap, don't judge this as a 17-year-old whiskey. This is lemon sherbet and fizz, and this is genuinely good Chininik whiskey. It's a really quite fantastic, fresh, vibrant, lovely malt. But the £130 I paid for it, that's probably the ceiling. 275 is nonsensical.
Yeah.
Talisker 18 that was nominated in the Oswas in 2021 went from sub £80 in the UK to 175 in one step.
Yeah.
That is absurd. We purchased the Talisker 18 for less than 100 American.
Yeah.
This was a while back.
It was a long time ago.
And then what we saw, what happened to the price, even Talisker 10 now,
It's
Roy,
a joke.
is $140 Canadian here. Talisker 10-year-old, and you know you can get any.
Nope.
Yeah, you can get any Glenallachie under. I know they're not comparable ones, peated ones, not whatever, but any Glenallachie under 18 years old or younger for less than that. No, how does that make sense
It's
to
just
anybody?
It's a shame writing off distilleries. Like, remember Ardbeg? Remember those days we used to buy Ardbeg special releases?
Remember Ardbeg?
Remember Ardbeg? We used to get excited about the community releases and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And now it's just like nothing. Like, we don't even care about
No,
Ardbeg anymore. Ardbeg is done.
Yeah.
Ardbeg is absolutely done.
It's sad, but it's
It's
true.
done.
And it's not because the quality is not there. The 10-year-old is fantastic.
The
5-year-old
core range,
is
I'm
good.
talking about these special releases that come out year after year after year. They just get worse and worse and worse, and the
Right.
prices go up and up and up, and it doesn't even matter about
But
the
it's
quality.
not even as good as the 10. Like it's
the
not even as
quality.
good.
The quality doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to
No,
them.
you're right.
Because it's
No.
like it's going to
That's-
sell out, and it's going to sell on the secondary market. It's going to sell at auctions, and then like people don't even open the bottle. So like, what does it matter?
Ardbeg knows that they have two fan bases. They have the fan base that always has to have an Ardbeg on the shelf, and they're gonna buy the 5 or the 10, and that's it. Maybe once in a while they'll splurge and get a Corey, they'll get an Ugadal, whatever, but they're sticking to the core range, and that's it because they know it's quality. Then they have the other fan base that's not necessarily a fan of the product, but they're just a fan of what they can get on secondary market, and that's everything else that they put out.
Yeah.
Literally everything else.
Yeah.
So, and that
And
unfortunately,
who suffers from that? Who suffers?
We do.
It's the people who have invested over the years, the real fans, the hardcore people that helped them be the Renaissance distillery that they were. They were in the 1990s, the late 90s. Ardbeg was in ruins. Glenmorangie comes in 1997 and brings it back to life, and you know it took a huge amount of. When we talk about that fan base, are we talking about the people that are replacing the 10-year-old? No, we are talking about the invested enthusiasts. And how are they repaying them? By every year bringing them something special and saying thank you for your loyalty. In order to maintain your loyalty to us, you now have to pay more. And unfortunately for the recent committee releases, in my opinion, less interesting releases.
Yeah.
The last one, famously, I think the unanimous agree, it's so easy to say that the last one that really grabbed us was potentially Dark Cove. Some people liked Black and other expressions. But they're literally saying, oh, thank you for being our fans.
Yeah.
Now you need to pay more.
that's right. And Balvenie's doing the same thing up here too.
It's wrong. It's just, how long will this endure? Well, it'll endure for as long as the fans are willing to pay it, I suppose. And right now, it seems like they are. Same as Macallan, but the fans have changed. The Macallan fans are not the same as the fans of Macallan of 15 years ago. It's a completely
Macallan died
fan.
as soon as we started getting into it.
Yeah, pretty much, because like there was some buzz around the Edition series and whatever else, but they never really got their wings back after they decided to pull all those age-dated whiskeys out.
Right, they went the Sienna, the Gold, the Ruby, which were okay, overpriced maybe for what they were.
The quality has gone down. The quality, I mean, you really like that 15, which is fine because there's not much competing in the 15-year-old range in the Macallan distillery, but the 12-year-old quality has gone down a lot. In my opinion, like you compare that to the old box 12-year-old, and they don't even sit on the same shelf.
No.
What was the one that I was thinking of that did pretty much the exact same thing, and now I've lost it?
Well,
Balvenie. I don't know. It wasn't a very well watched review I did recently, but it was the 15-year-old, a newer 15-year-old versus an independent teaspoon. It was a Balvenie with teaspoon Glenfiddich in it, and it's like 24 years old or something, 25 years old.
Is that Wardhead or Burnside or
Burnside? It was a Burnside Archives, yes, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the reason why I put them side by side, not because of like the age makes no sense and the ABV makes no sense side by side, but the fact that I got that Burnside at like sub $200 Canadian, 25-year-old independent bottle versus a $300 15-year-old Balvenie, and the quality difference was just astronomical.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing in my opinion. That's your core range. You're charging $300 for Canadian, and it doesn't even come close to worth anything in that. Like any 15-year-old, I would probably take over that Balvenie that I had. Maybe it was a bad batch, whatever. But
they're single barrels, but
I mean, there's an argument that they're allowed to cash in on decades of building a brand. And Balvenie absolutely have built a brand since the 80s, right? They really, really have. But it does get to the point where how many people out there are happy to spend hundreds of dollars or pounds or euros or whatever it may be on that product? How many?
Yeah.
When there's so much whiskey coming behind it, like a tidal wave of whiskey, not just Scotch, but from every country seems to be making, and worryingly or encouragingly, we're not talking about crap whiskey. We're talking about really quite compelling, tasty whiskey at a young age.
Absolutely.
How long can they keep that up? So it's okay to build a brand, but your brand has to be quality, Rob. And what you're saying is that you're tasting these things, the decline in the Macallan 12, the decline in the committee releases from Ardbeg. This is detrimental to your brand eventually. You can't keep selling a Bugatti and build it like something from the Soviet era, right? The quality has to be there in order to maintain the thing. And whiskey will be found out because everybody knows. And if they don't know, they find out very, very quickly.
Yeah. I think Bowmore, maybe, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, but I think Bowmore kind of recognized where their folly was in the 26 and 27, that kind of like wine cask influence release. They were so expensive. They still sit on shelves in Ontario right now, and they're much older, I guess, as an expression, like we're talking 4 or 5 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was, versus the Aston Martin, which yes is a marketing gimmick and whatever else, but coming in at a fraction of the price of those. Right. So hopefully, and you're talking about a whiskey that's 21 years old on paper, but has 35, 36, and 37-year-old whiskey inside of it as well.
Yeah.
And we're talking a good chunk at 40%.
Right.
So hopefully, I think Bowmore is onto something and they're finding their way, because I do believe that that's a distillery that has all the potential in the world if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, I mean, I've been in that warehouse. I've been in the #1 warehouse at Bowmore and sipped whiskey straight from the cask. I don't mind telling you that tears were shed. I mean, this was just, I'm not just talking about, the fact that we're in a dunnage warehouse and this was whiskey like would make you understand in vivid detail why you love whiskey so much. So many times it's the story from producer after producer after producer. What makes it into the bottle and onto the shelf for various reasons is very rarely a decent representation of that. Now, I don't deny that the things that they're rolling out for the warehouse experiences are handpicked and, really quite exceptional casks more often than not. But we know that when things are handled a wee bit better, when they're put together with thought and consideration, and they're not reliant on just tumbling the stuff out, dose it with caramel, put it out, make it meet minimum spec, sell it, stack them high, sell it, however it is they do it, which is unfortunately Bowmore today. Their non-age statement entry level is really poor. Yeah. I don't want it in my house. Yeah. The 12-year-old barely passes, the 15, some interest. It takes something exceptional from Bowmore, like what you're talking about. Somebody has taken care to put that together. Yeah. In order for us to taste why Bowmore is a legendary distillery. That's right. Their core range does not represent the standing of that distillery, and I don't think it has for I don't know, 8 years, a decade more. I don't know. It's I think it's poor, very poor. There's and worse, I don't know what it is in Canada. We get it at 40% here. 40.
Yeah. I think it's
43.
Everything except for the 18 is 43.
18 is 43 here.
The 18 is 43, and maybe the 15 is 43.
Yeah.
But the 12 is 40.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some bottles we do get 43 that the UK releases 40, which is weird, but that's how it works. But there's like all these distilleries that have made a name for themselves now are just like stretching their core range out and like, what can we produce at maximum margins and still have people buy it? And I think that like all these new distilleries now are just going to come up and just burst through all of that, because like the selection is going to go up and up and up and up, and like it's going to blow up in their face. They're going to have to adjust. They're going to have to adjust at some point.
It's often controlled by importers, agents, distributors, people making demands based on, give us some of this. Dark whiskey sells. Don't give me anything that's paler than Johnny Walker Black. Yeah. But what they're actually talking about, the market demands, that's not the drinker. That's the agent, the importer, the distributor. That's the market locally, wherever it is, that making those demands. So it's going to be interesting to see how independent voices, how the internet, how access to all of this information can break that and dissolve that a little bit, to make people realize that if you want quality, it's not about color and it's not about age. Often it's not about the brand on the bottle, the distillery that it's from. It's about quality. Yeah. And I think that hopefully, as you say, Jeremy, that variation. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't see, even if Ardbeg can do amazing things, they're not going to be able to sell to every market. They're not of that scale.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe they can grow and be that big. If we talk about all the the Deanstons of the world, who's a pretty decent scale malt distillery, will they manage to get, and if they keep good quality stuff and everything? I'm not sure. There's still a place for brands and large scale production and kind of people that are not us, that just want the reassurance of they drain a bottle, enjoy it, and replace it with the same bottle. That's still going to be the bulk of the market. But I think that fashion and vogue, what's in vogue and what is the latest buzz, does play a big part of it. And I think that, who could have seen 20 years ago Ardbeg was a cult brand. Now it's a brand, a global brand. There are smaller whiskies, smaller brands, smaller distilleries, smaller producers today that we're enjoying and we can buy fairly easily, that in the future is going to be at the status of Springbank is right now, unobtainium. Can you buy Springbank in Canada?
Yeah, just Alberta. Well,
You-
some Quebec releases.
Here
and
in
stuff.
Ontario, the last time Springbank was available for sale was like early 2020.
Yeah, we just the 10.
It was
right?
the 10 and 15, 18 maybe. They never had 21.
Hazelburn 10, Springbank 10, and Longrow NES.
Yeah,
That's it.
but it's been long gone since then. They haven't brought it back.
In 2022, I started to see the 15 and the 10. Let's not say on the shelf, but you could walk into a retailer and find one or two bottles sitting there. But before that, it was complete unobtainium.
Yeah,
At Springbank, do you know how many Springbank make across all of their ranges? Less than 500,000 liters a year.
Small.
Less than half.
Very
Across Hazelburn, Longrow, Springbank. And so we're talking super small, but they don't sell, they don't trade. It's just for them. Fair play to them. They make fantastic liquid, and now it's legendary. I mean, it's in the. If you're one of these maniac investors, enjoy your life. It's just open some of those bottles and taste them. It'll change your life while you're still alive.
Well, that's the
It's
thing.
amazing that you're making money. But Springbank's now appearing on the top 10. So you can understand why it's competing. We're competing with investors to buy the bottles now. Of course we understand, but it's there because of the flavor and the quality, not because of the brand. It's because of how good whiskey it is.
I hope it stays that way. I think what will be nice is, like you said, you're starting, and I noticed that as well. This year wasn't as hard to get the 10 and the 15. And I'm hoping it stays that way, because I think people are starting to feel like, there's not as big of a return on your investment if you buy the 10 and 15 rather than buying the ones that are, only 9,000 bottles per release or whatever.
Right.
So
and when you could buy it, even if you didn't need a bottle, you were buying it because it was there.
That's right.
And you were hoarding.
That's right.
I'm part of the
Yes.
problem too.
Well, yeah,
As
because if it's not me or you buying it, that we're gonna open it and drink it eventually.
The next
It's
guy's
someone
gonna
is
come in
someone
and
else is
just-
buying it and they're gonna flip it or they're gonna whatever. Like it's at least we'll drink it,
Enjoy it. Yeah.
right? We'll eventually drink it.
How many
It's too good
Camel
not
Tops do I have up
to.
in that corner there?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because before we even got a chance to really dig our hands and teeth into Kilkerran, it went the same way. It's become the same thing now. It's just as collectible, just as sought after. The 12 occasionally is on the LCBO shelf. That's it
that was a diamond in the rough at the
It was.
LCBO for a long time.
for a while.
Yeah,
Up
because it was
until-
$100 or something like $90. It was
Yeah.
great. It was a good deal.
I have that
Incredible.
one there, the 12-year-old that I have there. That I bought that at the LCBO last year.
Yeah,
And it was, I think, one of 3 bottles left on the shelf, and it was just a fluke. I wasn't even looking for it. I just found it, and it was nice to actually be able to go into the LCBO and buy something that I was interested
it'd
in.
be nice if the LCBO brought some more Campbelltown stuff. Now they're just like, nah.
So Roy, like if the LCBO wanted to, they could easily go to each distillery and say, we want one of your better casks every year for whatever, and they could literally sell out of it every single year without qualms and have that kind of buying power to do it. And they don't. They just, and recently an article was released about the wages of people at the LCBO. Have you seen this?
I don't want to see it.
So top 50 people, the 50th person is making 200,000 Canadian.
Yeah.
The number one person, and it's everything in between. The number one person is making 700,000 Canadian. So between 200 and 700,000 and everything in between, these guys can't use their this collective mind to figure out that there's a huge whiskey community in Ontario that is deprived.
It's depressing because the LCBO has like the second largest buying power of
In all of North
spirits in North America.
Yeah.
Right. They're huge
Yeah.
because you can only buy from the LCBO in this province.
Yeah.
It's the biggest province in Canada. They're bigger than a lot of other independent stores. They're huge.
Yeah.
But they do nothing
No.
to satisfy their consumer because they don't need to.
No, run-of-the-mill vodka and other.
They sell 300 million cases of Smirnoff a year, and they're happy with that because,
That's right.
why they're like the Costco, right? They only need to bring in certain brands. Why
Yeah.
expand? Why
No.
do something cool for your consumer? You don't need to do that at all. There's no point.
When there's no competitor,
No
they
competitor.
can just sit on their ass. It's
Right.
just
Exactly.
They
it's
have
absurd.
monopoly. Yeah, they charge
and
whatever.
it's not going to change while there's so much money being made. It's
There's-
just
there's
just
no
not.
one can change.
Sucks.
There's a top 50. Have you ever watched that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza walks in with his briefcase into work, makes it look like he's like really stressed, gets into his office, closes the door behind him, and watches the clock for the entire day every day? That's what 50 people with $200,000 or more
Right.
are doing at the LCBO right now every day. That's
Right.
what they're doing. So
And you know what? The really sad thing about that is probably it's not their fault. It's just that they
No.
don't. It's a legislative thing, isn't it? It's just it's been allowed to be like that for so long. But in Alberta, right, they have a much more kind of liberal approach to sourcing. Is that true? Or
No, they have privatized
it's
liquor sales, right? It's like it's not
Ish.
government controlled as much, right?
No,
They pay a tax,
yes.
but there's not like a control board doing what
goes-
they do.
It goes to it's way more approachable. And every distillery that's ever told me that they're dealing with the LCBO has told me the exact same thing. It's just they're not approachable. It takes like Shelter Point's been trying to get into LCBO for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So how does that make sense? You have one of the better Canadian distilleries because they're in the West Coast. They've been trying to get into the LCBO for the last 5 years, and finally it's going to happen with it. Like they didn't even give them a proper timeline. It's anywhere within the next year and a half, 2 years.
One problem with the LCBO is shelf space, and big brands pay for premium shelf space, and there's
That's
only
right.
so much that they were willing to source out. And what the LCBO needs, and this is a great point made to us by our one buddy Bobby, they need like other outlets to sell whiskey and other outlets to sell specialty liquor. They need stores that are just whiskey or just whatever or just rum or just what. They can't compete with like their main store because there's only this much shelf space, and it's like it's the pictures we take.
Yeah.
It's Jack Daniels and it's Bullet Bourbon and it's it's basic.
Yeah.
They need another outlet to sell cool stuff, and they could easily do that.
Absolutely.
Easily do that. And sometimes they do. There was a pop-up whiskey store for about a year, and then they kiboshed it.
Yeah, but the problem with that is it's always going to be more of the same. You need someone with whiskey chops that is running that store, that's willing to do the due diligence to contact Scottish distilleries and all these other places.
Yeah, it's just frustrating for us because we know they could do it. They have the money and the power because it's $1 billion, multi-billion-dollar revenue source for this province every single year, and they don't care because why would they? There's no competition, so they don't need to.
We've completely digressed. We are officially
We always roll back to the LCBO at some point in time during these rants.
Do we give them a fresh start this year on the ticker?
No, keep it rolling.
I don't even
Keep it spinning.
where we left off.
Keep it spinning. Keep it spinning.
Roy, before we go, what's one thing you're really, really, really looking forward to in 2023?
Events. Oh my God, always events. And I know that that's hard because I guess that you guys, I don't know if you have many events or whatever. Even the one that's coming up for you in a few weeks' time is Vancouver, right? It's a way over west.
Yeah.
You must have things much more local in Quebec and Montreal and Ontario closer to you. And
yeah, in Toronto, there's the Spirit of Toronto, which we used to go to more often, and that's becoming absurdly out of price too.
They want a lot of money.
They want a lot of money to go there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the Glasgow Whisky Festival comes in November, and the ticket is £40.
See, like, how does that make
That- yeah,
sense?
it's crazy.
How's that even?
Right. But here's the thing: is that you go along, and it's free pour. You literally hold out a glass, and they'll pour whatever is on the table for you.
Yeah.
Isn't
Now,
that-
of course, the caveat there is that the majority of the stuff on the table is core-range stuff.
Yeah.
But it is a very, very efficient way for you to get trying things that you've not tried yet. But there are also new distilleries there. There are independent bottlers there. There are people there there is no way that if I really worked hard from now till the Glasgow Whisky Festival in November to try every whiskey that came across my path, I would still turn up at the festival and find a plethora of stuff that I've never touched.
Right.
And that's because it's subsidized by the exhibitors. They bring the stock to share. They're trying to sell their stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's how it is at the Spirit of Toronto as well. Yet the ticket price, I think this year we priced it out. It was going to cost us almost over $300 Canadian just to go.
Yeah.
And if we wanted to do like a special event or something of that sort, it was going to be even more on top of that. And something as like simple as the Benromic core range was going to be like another $100.
So you need grassroots festivals.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need you guys to get together and say, we'll do our own festival, right? We'll do, and I know
this
that
province
the
though
legislation
is tough to do it in this province.
Well,
Yeah.
not if you bring in the distiller, the ambassadors from each distillery and say, hey, we're going to put together this event.
Yeah.
We're going to put together this event at this hall, for example, this banquet hall, we can fit 1,000 people. You know, we're going to get these guys in the door, pay for the minimal amount of food that they need for the night or whatever it is. That's what they're going to pay for a ticket. Nobody's making a profit. We're going to just run this thing.
So it's like Wayne stock. If you book them, they will come.
Right. I guarantee you these distilleries would line up to do it. It's the way the system is.
Until
working.
Spirit of Toronto say, if you support that gig, you don't get to come back to this gig.
Exactly.
And then the distilleries that stand up and say, okay, we're going to go with that gig, screw your gig. That's what separates the grist, what's it called? The wheat from the chaff or so. Because it's they have to decide. It's like, if you're going to price something out, they're just going to be preaching to the same people year after year. Whiskey has to be a people's drink. It has to be inclusive. It has to be accessible. And as soon as it's being priced out by dynamics like that, it is literally setting its own death clock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People say to me, why is it so many people into whiskey, the age, the demographic that they are? I don't know what you were earning in your early 20s or your late teens, but I wasn't earning enough to enjoy whiskey.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's still it marches on.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's just so short-sighted, and it takes disruption and innovation and thinking and creativity to dispel that horrible thing.
Yeah.
You know, because it's tempting for any business to make money, you know, make hay while the sun shines. But there's short to medium growth, and there's long-term stability and growth. So, I mean, I just love being part of this side, the enjoyment of it. I would hate to be on the other side, honestly. I never want to work in whiskey in terms of the producer. I do work in whiskey. I can't avoid that, but you know, I just think it's challenging for them too, because they need to be profitable and be successful. But whiskey is a product of boom and bust. We've never seen it like it is right now. We've never known variety, a boom that's just continuously a boom year after year after year, more and more. We've never known it to be like this for this long. It's good, it's very positive, but we're holding this golden amber thing, this ball in our hands, and if we're not careful, we're just going to volley it out of the park and just look back on it and say, oh yeah. It's just, there needs to be younger people coming in. There needs to be more vibrant things. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be less about premiumization, fake exclusivity, contrived supply, controlled supply, all of that crap. And they're just, my goodness, it has turned into a whiskey rant. I apologize. It's because it's beyond midnight here now.
The name of the game.
That's a great way to end it right there. I think that was perfectly said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's exactly it. So hopefully in 2023, you guys find what you're looking for. Hopefully you don't have to break the bank to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be very interested to know what our viewers are looking to purchase in 2023, and if they're going to continue to do what they've been doing or thinking of switching it up and going a different route this year. I'd be very interested to know.
Absolutely. Roy, what have you poured?
just because it was sitting right in front of me, a very, very young, the Lindor's sherry cask that was sitting here. Yeah, just you can see how dark it is. It's just, but you can enjoy how dark it is, as I said earlier in the stream, because it is natural.
Right, and a young age for that one as well, right?
3 years old. Yep, it's 3 years old, and it was, I think it was £59, going from memory, something of that order. So, but still less than 100 Canadian, which is a lot of money to spend on a 3-year-old whiskey. But you know, these guys, when they're putting out 8-year-old product, hopefully it's still going to be £59, right? So
that'd be nice.
Yeah,
they catch up.
Well, it was an honor to have you on.
Absolutely.
A proper rant, of course.
Absolutely.
And yeah. All the links down below to check out all of Roy's stuff, all the Dram Face stuff. Check him out.
Aquavitae, the YouTube channel.
All of it. 100%.
All of that stuff.
It was an honor for me to be on.
It was a pleasure.
An absolute pleasure to be here, hanging out with two classy voices and whiskey. It's brilliant stuff. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
Pleasure was ours, I assure you.
Indeed.
And yeah, looking forward to what's coming up on Aquavitae for sure.
We'll do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Pleasure.
Cheers,
Pleasure,